This is the story of men who are victims of war. Victims of war. The combat footage you will see was culled from the Vietnam War years. 19. The average age of the combat soldier was 26. In Vietnam, he was 19.
Thank you very much. It doesn't seem like 19 years ago that I recorded that song. Who would have believed that one record could have actually launched one of the largest entertainment companies in the world?
In World War II, the average age of the combat soldier was 26. In Vietnam, he was 19.
25 years on, we find out why Paul Hardcastle's releasing a new version of his hit, 19. Simon, thank you very much indeed. Now, it has been 25 years since producer Paul Hardcastle made #1 with his anti-war dance mix 19. I'm sure you remember it, based, as the memorable chorus said, on the average age of an American combat soldier in Vietnam. I can't believe it's 24 years. But now Paul, who lives in Essex, has updated the song, focusing on the conflict in Afghanistan.
Now, what moved him especially was the death of his son's friend in Afghanistan. He was aged just 19. And we'll be talking to Paul in just a moment. But first, here's the original 19 from 1985 and, of course, the new version released this week.
In Vietnam, he was 19. 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 This is the story of men who are victims of war. They fought the longest war in American history. They all saw
It's still terribly powerful listening to the original version, and the new version, Paul, is just as hard hitting. It's lovely of you to come in to talk to us about it. It's very nice to meet you indeed. It's even darker, I think, than the original. What inspired you this time?
Well, basically, it's been 25 years since 19 was #1, and I don't feel that we've moved on that much. And sadly, Paul, my son, who's 19 himself, said to me when I was doing it, he said, "Did you realise a friend of mine actually died out in Afghanistan?" He was a young guy called George Sparks, and I contacted his family and I said, "Look, I'm doing a new version. Would you mind if I put George's picture in the video?" And they was absolutely over the moon that I would do that, because what's happened is they feel their son's been forgotten. You know, they were supposed to have a park named after George in Epping, and a few weeks just before it was going to go ahead, apparently a few of the people from the council decided to sort of veto it, so it never happened. So a family has lost their kid, and basically 2 weeks before then they've told they're going to get something, and they didn't. So I promised them, I said, listen, I will keep George's memory alive and his name alive, and that for me is basically the reason I'm doing it. Also, Richard Hunt, who was the 200th soldier to die, I spoke to his mum Hazel, and basically, you know, the same sort of thing. She said, "I'd love you to put his picture in the video," and it's just keeping their memories alive. And we will be actually sort of using some of the profits for it, you know, for these people that have post-traumatic stress disorder. And I guess my only problem is there's an election going on, and it's put it to the back a bit, and it would be a shame if just because of an election all these people didn't benefit from what I'm trying to do.
I suppose the sense is there's always a procession when we hear of casualties and deaths from Afghanistan and from Iraq. This importantly recognises that it's always someone's son or indeed daughter who has been a casualty or a victim. What has been the reaction to your re-release?
It's been fantastic. I mean, I've had roughly, I looked a couple of days ago, we had 875,000 Google alerts. We've been on ABC TV in America. You know, it's been a whole round the world thing. It's not only just about records in charts, it's about awareness. And I do feel that we've actually got, you know, the message out there quite a lot. You know, if 3 or 10 people looked at them Google alerts, that's 10 million people who know about George Sparks and Richard Hunt. And I feel that I've actually sort of really kept my promise. But I'm not stopping here. You know, we've had the newspapers on now and stuff like that. So it's not one of these things like last time, like, you know, straight into #1. It'll be a thing that carries on for a while, but it's important that we remember these kids.
You're right, Paul, and it's very good of you to come in to talk to us about it. Very nice to meet you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Time now.
What's that? The dog howls on Dead or Alive's infamous TDF mix were programmed with a keyboard sampler. This new tech was much loved by big producer acts like Trevor Horn's The Art of Noise, who performed tracks on top of the pops with minimum vocals and sampled sounds. Up till now, their favourite toy, the Fairlight sampler, was, at 30 grand, the same price as a house. But in '85, at a quarter of the price, came the Emulator 2. And it inspired a young bedroom producer at his mum's house in Leytonstone.
So around the start of '85, I was just at home and I was reading the paper and I saw that there was a programme on about Vietnam coming on, so I taped it.
In World War II, the average age of the combat soldier was 26. In Vietnam, he was 19.
And I found it very intriguing, the fact that the kids at the time that were going out to battle were only 19 years old, and yet in America you can't even have a drink till you're 21. So I taped the programme, and I was just mucking about with some rhythms and stuff like that, and I put some of the commentary in to the emulator, and one bit it just said, in Vietnam he was 19.
In Vietnam, he was 19.
And I tapped it a few times, you know, on the keyboard, and then it went no. I thought, wow, that's different.
19.
The Vietnam War has inspired an unusual pop record due to be released next week. All the indications are that it's going to be a big hit.
In World War II, the average age of the combat soldier was 26. In Vietnam, he was 19. In Vietnam, he was 19.
Alongside the single, Paul asked the producers of Vietnam Requiem to create a video from the documentary's powerful footage.
In Vietnam, the combat soldier typically served a 12-month tour of duty, but was exposed to hostile fire almost every day.
It was so powerful. You're talking about young boys being sent off to foreign wars, you know, and it really, really had a resonance.
According to a Veterans Administration study, half of the Vietnam combat veterans suffer from what psychiatrists call post-traumatic stress disorder. Many vets complain of alienation, rage, or guilt. Some succumb to suicidal thoughts. 8 to 10 years after coming home, almost 800,000 men are still fighting the Vietnam War.
I remember going into Chrysalis and watching it, and I saw 3 women journalists actually come out crying. And that was, we thought, wow, what have we created here?
It went in at number 4 in the charts, first weekend, which was incredible. A brand new act to go in at number 4. At that time, it just did not happen.
In Vietnam, he was 19. In Vietnam, he was 19.
Michael Hurl, who was the producer of the Top of the Pops at the time, basically kept on saying to me, you know, do you not think that you could really do something on Top of the Pops?
I wasn't really sure what was going on.
19.
I think it would have been difficult for him to do that. How would have he performed the song? He'd probably end up like Harold Faltermeyer did, with the most boring live performance that I think that you'd ever see on Top of the Pops.
Harold would not appear on Top of the Pops again and stalled at number 2. But Paul's cut and paste technique in music and video proved an irresistible chart-topping formula.
He's a producer, he remixes records, and he's number 1.
Yes, for the second week running, Paul Hardcastle, 19.
We got to number 1 and we were quite amazed by it all, but we obviously wanted to stay there, and Paul came up with several different mixes.
And one of the reasons we did that was because Duran Duran were right behind us at number 2.
Okay, look over your shoulder.
I went back into the studio and I remixed the track and I changed some of the vocals around.
19.
I added some new documentary which I'd found, which took the war on slightly further, and I called it the Destruction Mix.
Unlike Vietnam, World War II saw America unite behind her fighting men. The 2 wars were just as different on the front lines as they were back home. 19.
So a different edit would go on to Top of the Pops each week.
19.
Which then people went out and repurchased. And we stopped, you know, the biggest band, most probably in the world then, which were the Duranis. And also they had the biggest film in the world at the time with View to a Kill. And little old me stopped and being number 1, and it was quite a feat, really. And I think Simon Le Bon wasn't too happy.
Excuse me, aren't you?
Bon, Simon Le Bon.